Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Hello, Heather. Thank you for joining us on the vlog today. How are you doing?
Great. This is exciting. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time. I'm always here helping people get their message out more, hear what you guys have for stories to share with your nuggets of knowledge along the experience path. And I'm super grateful that you're joining me today, especially with all the crazy chaos and wild things that are happening around us, and you having this time and space for to share with my followers and the Live Fearlessly vlog. And I just totally appreciate you. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Um, so Heather Ryder, known professionally as the Energy Synergist, is an anxiety specialist who personally overcame high functioning anxiety. She works with clients from all over the world who want to take a non-traditional, holistic approach to healing anxiety. She regularly writes and presents on the issues of perfectionism, high functioning anxiety, and other anxiety related topics, which, hello, this is the perfect place for you to be helping heal people and get us all in a positive place and moving through what's going on. So again, welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell everyone, where are you tuning in from today?
Yeah, I live in Austin, Texas.
Perfect. Now, are you from Austin originally?
I grew up in Colorado, actually, kind of out in the country. It's part of the Metro Denver area now, but I'm from the Denver area originally, and I've lived in Austin twice. This is my second time here. I've been back for about 8 years.
Nice. Okay, cool. I love it. And it looks like the sun is shining over by you a little bit, so that's
Yeah,
always
it's
nice.
great spring day here. Yeah,
Yay. Yeah, what was it, Monday, the first day of spring?
I think
So,
so. I think you're
yeah,
right.
that's always good. I love it. So, I always like to start out with like more relatable things, to just kind of get the flow of the conversation going. So, Heather, what's something that you would like to share with the viewers and I that we wouldn't necessarily know about you? What's a fun fact?
Oh my gosh, a fun fact about me. I don't know, this just popped in my mind, so I'll say it. I was born in the 70s. I'm in my 40s, and I guess when I was born, I had a blood infection in my bloodstream, and I was in an incubator for a number of days. And I
Wow.
mentioned that I was born in the 70s because when I asked my mom questions like, "Well, what do you mean I had a like infection in my bloodstream, and why was I in an incubator?" She's like, "I don't know. That's what the doctors told me." And I'm like, that's kind of a big deal. And so that's like all the extent of what I know about some random infection that I had that kept me in an incubator for multiple days. But I'm doing pretty good now.
Isn't that interesting? I think that that is a fun fact to think about right now with the times that we are in, with the pandemic that we're going through. Like, realizing that we just trust what we hear, and like that was what it was before. We didn't ask, they didn't, not we, I'm not from 70s, but they didn't ask a lot of questions back then. They really just trusted what was being told to them, and listening to the recommendations of the doctors and knowing that they had your best interest in mind. And I think that's really interesting to think about at this point.
Yeah, I would agree is a big cultural shift, right? Is that if someone was given information by a doctor before, they just took it at face value and maybe didn't feel empowered to ask a lot of questions. And for all of the moms listening, I know I can imagine that when my mom had a baby, she also had me much younger than I did now, right? Because people had babies a lot earlier then. So there's also just like a lack of maturity and probably confidence. And so you just are like, oh, okay, my baby has an infection. And so, yeah, it's very different times. And as you mentioned, we are filming recording this during the pandemic. So it's a highly unusual time as well, where we have a lot of information coming at us and we're trying to discern what we agree with or think with, or, lots of sources of information that we're trying to kind of sift through right now.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that goes with the fact that it's uncertain times, right? We don't know what next week is going to look like. And again, that goes with, parenthood and, getting information that we have not expected necessarily, and seeing how we feel and moving through those emotions and the actions that we take and the realistic things that we absorb along the way. I think that is a really interesting fact. Huh. Okay. I like it. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Um, So like to dive in more about your story, right? We want to hear about the significant time in your life when fear held you back from living your life fully. So you can go ahead and just tell us a little bit more about that time in your life.
Yeah, I think that this will really resonate with a lot of people. And what just popped into my mind is when I was getting a divorce, I'm divorced now. When I was getting a divorce, my daughters were really young. They were 2 and 5. And I was a stay-at-home mom at that time. So I took a couple of times that I was stay-at-home mom after my first daughter. Then I went back to work. Then I was staying home again. And so getting a divorce as a stay-at-home parent, and I had to go back to work, and we had to sell our house because I couldn't afford to pay for it. And so I was trying to sell this house and then figure out where I'm going to live when I didn't have a job, and going through a divorce with little kids and how do you explain things to them. It was a very fearful time of my life. And I really had to have some, reliance on myself and resources to kind of get back going, get back into the workplace, and navigate a lot of big life challenges. And this probably will segue into some things that we will talk about later. But I really, at that time, I was doing my best and I was trying to push through a lot of fear, but I was also really blocking a lot of the emotions that I had at that time, because I just had to like take care of business, right? And figure it out and kind of push my emotions to the side so that I could be what I thought was be strong for my daughters and also kind of get my life back on track.
Yeah. It's always interesting to hear like how these stories all really interweave together, right? Like fear is present in like everyday life. And that's, I like to point out that the fearless part, like the live fearlessly, isn't that we don't have fear, right? We know we have fear every day, and like how we're moving through them as we're talking about, right? And to your extent, like you were going through a lot of changes at one time, which a lot of people can relate to right now. This is perfect. But figuring out the tools and the resources and the things that we have at our disposal and how we use them. But so like for the mental aspect of, when you were moving through your fears at that time, what did you do? Like, okay, actually first, how did you feel on a mental level? Like, how was your mentality during that time? And how did you feel about yourself?
Gosh, this is really a lot of things that I would say in retrospect, because that's why I mentioned I was doing the best that I can. There's a lot of things that I realize now that I wasn't doing that I should have, because we'll get into the fact that I really struggled with high functioning anxiety. And so at that time, I was really just relying on, I am actually very adaptable. I am very resourceful. I knew that I could do all of the things that I needed to do. But what I wasn't letting myself do is feel a lot of the emotions that I needed to feel, like grief around the loss of my marriage, just feeling the fear more, feeling sadness. It was like I just felt like I have to push through. And that's what I did. I did all of the things I needed to do, hiring a realtor, all of those sorts of like check off the boxes of the logistics about how I do all of the stuff. I'm great at doing that. And so I just relied on my strengths in that way. But looking back, I really know I should have let myself, cry in a puddle on the floor. Like that was really needed. And I just wasn't doing that. And it came back around. There's lots of like, that's why I mentioned like pushing that aside. That only works for so long.
Right. Yeah. And again, actually going to the situations that we're in right now, I think that is a huge thing that people are feeling, a sense of grief, right? For their jobs, for their normalcy that they've had too. And I think that that's something that someone was just talking to me about, that there's an article or someone wrote a blog maybe that was talking about the state of grievance that people are having right now with what's going on. And how that something that I am seeing with human nature right now. I'm a big proponent for the human connection, and something that I'm realizing is how a lot of, like, I have two buckets of people right now, and I'm sure you can relate. Like, I can see how they are bettering themselves in this time, and then I can see a bucket of people that are doing the numbing thing and the staying busy, or using their numbing mechanisms that they had before, but it's actually going to make them worse during this time, because If they were drinkers, they're drinking more. If they were emotional eaters, like they're emotionally eating more. Like going back to those vices, is this something that you're kind of like seeing right now too, that can make sense with what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in a lot of conversations just with people I know and with my clients, it does seem like people are very much on a roller coaster, right? It's like, and they're feeling so many different things in one day. Like sometimes they'll really be afraid. They're fearful that they're going to lose their job, or they're fearful for their health or somebody else's health that they love. But then there's something where they'll kind of move themselves out of that into like a state of gratitude, and because they're catching themselves being like, oh my gosh, this is getting really heavy. This isn't good for me. Or they're identifying some behaviors like they just talked about, like, oh my gosh, I've stress eaten my entire house and I need to get outside and go for a walk. And then they get outside and they feel better. And then, you know, so it's like, I would say that this is what we all need to embrace all the time, not just now, is that we have a spectrum of emotions and they all are valuable. And it's not pushing any of them away, because it's actually better to just feel them. And if you are scared, let yourself feel scared, and you'll be surprised at how fast that moves through you, instead of pushing the fear away by eating or drinking or, you know, whatever, or just numbing yourself on social media. So it's like we all are having lots of emotions right now. And so how can we embrace feeling all of them all the time is really a goal that we should all have.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love that. I knew that would be a good thing to talk about with you. It's like, that's perfect. Because, okay, so like the next question that I have is, when we're breaking free from the fears and we're moving into the new and better direction, you know, sometimes we have friendships and relationships that do change during those times. Did this happen for you in your experience going through your divorce and moving through that? And just tell us a little bit more about relationships and your connections and how those shifted or changed.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily through my divorce, but that's a great question. I've always been a very loyal person, and I didn't realize this about myself, is that when I make a friend, I used to always think, well, that's my friend for life. And so it would be very difficult for me to recognize when relationships should end, because sometimes people are just meant to be in our life for a short time. And as we grow and morph and hopefully change for the better, there will be people that no longer should be in your life. They're just not a good fit for you anymore. You've outgrown them, and it's perfectly fine that they are where they are on their journey. But learning to respect yourself and knowing that sometimes you do need to sever ties or relationships, that it's actually in your best interest to let that person go. And that can be really hard for people who are like me, who feel like I make a commitment to something or someone, and then I feel like I'm kind of, you know, bound to that relationship. And so that's, as I've evolved, I've realized, no, I have to let some people go sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes severing that tie is the best thing for both people, and kind of like dead weight, or just like you said, not serving us anymore. So I agree with that. If you could label, like, or put a name to your fear during this time that we're talking about, what would that be? What was your fear of?
Are you asking me what my fear of is during this pandemic, or another?
No, your story. Sorry, for your story about moving through your divorce and that fearful time. What would you label
Right,
that?
yeah, to name or like categorize the fear, it was really a money fear, because I was relying on someone else's income and I wasn't necessarily going to have that. And I had been out of the workforce. And even I guess to give a little bit of a backstory, when I lived in Austin and I worked in technology, and then my now ex-husband and I moved to Charlotte. And when I was working there, I was a school librarian. And I chose that because well, I have a degree in library and information science, but it was because the school schedule fit well, because my ex-husband used to travel for work a lot. And so it wasn't just the loss of income. It was that if I were going to go back to doing what I was doing, I wasn't going to be making a lot of money working in a school. So there was just a lot of fear around money and whether I was going to have enough money or not.
Okay. Yeah, I always like to know like how you would label your fear, because you know, you telling us your story might resonate some other way with us hearing what the fear is, what's going on. So I love asking that direct question. So when you, what really compelled you to jump ship from your fear then, and really start gaining some traction with that?
Well, I mean, I guess like I had said, I mean, I've always been able to, I guess, like pivot and become adaptable and not let fear overtake me. I can still operate within it. So I guess to answer your question, I mean, there was circumstances I had to keep moving forward. I mean, we had to sell our house. I had to find a job. And so you just get to I just got to the core level of these are the things I need to do. And because my natural tendency is to be able to like literally list things out in order, I'm really good at that, knowing like the strategy of what needs to come first. And I knew all of the parts. So it's just like being in action. I guess it kind of came naturally for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anyone that's listening that's maybe not organized currently, like that's a great step for you to you know, take some action, and would be to make a list of the things that you must get done, and those are high priority, and then, you know, move from there. But what other like things for advice would you maybe give the viewers, Heather, for overcoming their fear, or moving through their fear?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I guess, to kind of circle back around is if you are feeling afraid, you should let yourself be afraid. And if you realize that if you are going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to tap into my body, where do I actually feel this fear? Is it in your chest? Does your chest feel really tight? Maybe you've got like a lump in your throat, or you're feeling nauseous. Your body is the indicator that you're feeling an emotion. That's how you know it, is that your body's a signal. And so if you let yourself just feel it and say, oh my gosh, my chest is talking to me, I'm feeling constriction in my chest, why? Then you start to realize, oh, I'm feeling fear. And like you just asked a really astute question, what am I afraid of? And then you can start to be like, okay, I'm actually afraid of this. I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough money, or I'm afraid, you know, it's like you've got to lay it out of like what's really underneath all of that. So it does involve some real introspection and some really looking at yourself and what's underneath, which can be hard if you haven't been doing that. I'm making it sound easy, but the more you practice that and the more you do it, it actually does get easier and easier. Like the answers will come more quickly. And if you let yourself feel whatever emotion it is, or feel, it'll like pass through your body and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I like that. So is there something that maybe you necessarily do? So something that, you know, doing virtual schooling with my pre-K, or right now, they brought home an emotional chart to like talk about his feelings and what he's feeling on each day. Is that maybe something that people could be doing, is really like assessing their, because I feel like a lot of people don't know what they're feeling these days. It's all, like you said, all the emotions at one time. People just kind of the overwhelm is just there. So what is it, journaling? Like what's something that they could be doing to kind of move through that, to assess it?
I do think you're really onto something, and your pre-K, like that teacher's onto something, is we do actually have to have the vocabulary. And that is a first key step. And so you can find sheets, charts on the internet, super easy, right? Like PDFs of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody wants, you could print that off. I do actually recommend this to my clients. You can print them off. You can circle what your emotions are for 5 days in a row. And then you can lay all the sheets out 5 days in a row, and you can start to see a pattern. And you can also start to see probably where the patterns were at specific times of the day. And again, right now, I mean, everyone's going to be watching this at different times. Maybe they're going to see it a year from March 26, 2020, and it's not the pandemic anymore, right? So this applies to any time. It's just like, what are the emotional vocabulary? Because how can you name something if you literally don't have a name for it? And so but then there is also the work of, like I said, really tapping into you're feeling something in your body. You don't just have an emotion, it's your body is the receptor for it. You are feeling, that's what the word is feeling it in your body. So then you tie the word to where you're feeling it in your body. And that's what helps you be able to process it is noticing like, okay, I'm feeling elated. How do I know? I have this bubbly, giggly feeling like through my jaw, or I'm feeling really, really panicked right now. I know because I feel like I'm going to vomit. Right. And so then those are like the first two steps is name it. And then where are you feeling it?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I started that with my son or all three of my kids. And then she brought that sheet home. I was like, we're already starting this. So this is perfect. So that's awesome to hear that's something that you actually like are helping people with as adults, because that makes me feel, that gives me ease. Like I feel a relief just hearing that too, knowing that that's something good that, we do need throughout our life and not just right now. I really feel like what's happening right now is getting people back to the basics of taking care of ourselves, knowing how to really go inward and know what we need first before we go do all of the other things and spend money like crazy on things that don't necessarily matter and all of that. So I love this conversation right now. This is great. So then my last question that I love to ask, which is very unknown right now, I'm sure, but now that you have tools in your tool belt and resources to help you move through your emotions and your fears better, where do you see yourself 5 years from today? Which I know sounds crazy to ask someone right now, but hey, that's what I love to know. I'm a futuristic person. So where do you see yourself 5 years from today, Heather?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll say some personal things and then, some professionally related things. I mean, I have two daughters in high school. So in 5 years, they will not be living with me anymore, which is a crazy, crazy thought. And so I think I'll be probably getting back to having more hobbies. I definitely do things for myself, but I haven't fully had time to do the things that I used to do before I had kids, right? And so all the people who are watching with kids, it's just like, it's very, very, it takes a lot of your time. And eventually I am still divorced. And so I assume that at some point I'm going to meet someone. And then professionally, it's just, I've been helping and focused on really helping women for years. And I know that I'll be doing that at an even bigger scale within 5 years. I don't fully know what that looks like, but I guess I would want to say I want to reach even more people with my message.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's perfect. I like that you broke it down like that, because majority of people are like, I don't know. So maybe I'll get more clear on that, the question, because I like how you broke that down to make it really simple, clear, and concise, that you can go boom, boom, boom. And there's that list coming out of you.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Heather, thank you so much for your time on here, sharing your knowledge. Is there anything that you would like to leave the viewers with as a message?
Yeah, this is always true. There's always hope, right? No matter how things seem or how bad they are, if we can just trust and I guess sometimes just really let go of control, because we have a lot less control than we think we do. The universe is working in your favor. It really is. The universe is on your side, and things will work out, and your life is going to be fine. And I'm sure most people have felt this way. We never could have imagined where we are today. It's probably not where we thought we would be. I mean, and I'm not talking about the pandemic. I'm just talking about the way our life kind of twists and turns. It usually winds up being really different than we thought. And so if you can just know that there's a plan for you, and that things are working in your best interest, your life's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Where is the best place that the viewers can connect with you, Heather?
Oh, thanks. So I'm known professionally, as you mentioned, as the Energy Synergist. And so that is my website. It's theenergysynergist.com.
Perfect. Guys, go connect with Heather and check out everything that she offers. She's an awesome human being, as you can tell. Totally appreciate you guys watching. Heather, thank you again for your time and your story and your nuggets of knowledge. I think this is all fantastic. So let us know in the comments, what was the best thing that you took from this? Tell us the one big takeaway that you had. I would love to hear from you. And remember to love yourself and live fearlessly. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.